Part 1. The Divorce Agreement. Silence settled over the Duke of Graham's office, which currently stood without its owner. Seated on a sofa to one side of the room, I kept my lips tightly shut as I waited for Ains Graham to return. Anxiety and unease wrapped around me. I had to meet him today. There was something I absolutely had to tell him. Time had always felt slow to me, but never had it dragged on as painfully as it did today. After waiting tensely for nearly an hour, click. The sound of the doorknob turning broke the silence. I had been staring down at my hands, but at that sound I rose to my feet. The door opened, and a tall, well-built man entered. It was Ains. "You're back," I whispered. At my voice, he seemed to notice my presence belatedly and turned his head toward me. "Why are you here?" His voice was ice cold. I flinched instinctively, my shoulders shrinking. "I told you not to enter my office," he said, walking toward me slowly. Step by step, his footsteps echoed through the room. Without realizing it, I took a half step back. Noticing my reaction, he stopped and frowned. "So, what brings you here?" There was still no emotion in his voice. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. All the words I had rehearsed refused to come out, but I had to say it today. "I came because I have something to tell you. Something to tell me. Please divorce me." At my sudden words, Ains froze. "What brought this on all of a sudden? It's what you've always wanted, isn't it?" Once I started, the words began to flow. "I'm tired now, tired of waiting for you to love me. You'll never love me anyway, so this waiting was meaningless from the start. I'll give you the divorce you want." Ains looked at me with suspicion, but he couldn't deny it. Ever since our marriage, he had been the one who wanted out. I had refused his previous requests, hoping that maybe he might come to love me. "However, I have a condition," I added. Ains let out a hollow laugh. It sounded like mockery. "A condition? Don't tell me you're going to say something like, 'Let's do it in a few years.'" I shook my head calmly. "No, then, I'd like a large alimony payment." "Alimony?" At his incredulous tone, I nodded. "Yes, this divorce is something you wanted from the beginning. You've never fulfilled your duties as a husband." My heart pounded rapidly. My fingertips turned cold. What if he refuses? "How much do you want?" 1 million gold. It was a figure I had calculated countless times. Ains frowned deeply. I knew 1 million gold was a staggering sum, even for the man who ran the Graham Merchant Guild. But it wasn't unrealistic for him. Ains touched his lips and smirked. "Did you think that if you asked for 1 million gold, I'd try to stop you?" He seemed to think my demand was a tactic to hold on to him, but I truly needed the money to survive. "No, I really want a divorce. If you prepare that amount, I'll sign immediately." Ains stared at me for a long moment, his eyes sharp. His gaze felt as though he were looking at a stranger. "Fine, I'll have it ready by tomorrow." Part 2. The Secret Illness. I fled from his office. The door shut behind me with a thud, and I leaned against the wall, slowly collapsing to the floor. Surprisingly, no tears came. Instead, I felt only emptiness. "Milady, are you all right?" the head maid, Rachel, asked. "I'm fine. Could you help me up? I need to visit grandfather." As we walked, Rachel spoke with difficulty. "Wouldn't it be better to tell the master the truth? No matter how cold he is, if he knew you were ill, wouldn't he try to find medicine for you?" I shook my head. "No, to him, I'm just a bothersome pebble. If I receive enough alimony, I can buy the medicine myself." I visited Damon Graham, the former duke. He was the one who had taken me in 10 years ago. "I've decided to divorce Ains tomorrow," I told him softly. "So, it's come to this," he sighed, holding my hand tightly. "I'm sorry for forcing this marriage on you both. It must have hurt you greatly." "No," I smiled sadly. "It was something I wanted too." Part 3. The Auction. A week later, I was no longer Cecilia Graham. I was Cecilia Marves, Baroness of Marves. I had moved back to my family estate and immediately began my search for the Tyria flower. I suffered from Trint's disease, a condition where the mana in the body stiffens. The Tyria flower, which blooms only under midnight moonlight, was the only cure. It was rare and expensive, often used by mages to enhance their power. I attended the Replen auction house to buy mana stones as a temporary measure. "The 9th item is a set of 12 high-grade mana stones," the auctioneer announced. "Bidding starts at 10 gold. I waited until the price hit 200, then joined in. 240 gold, I bid. 260 gold from seat 204, the auctioneer countered. I pushed to 280. We went back and forth until the price reached an absurd 380 gold. I looked toward seat 204, wondering who was so desperate. My heart stopped. Sitting there, looking bored and regal, was Ains. He had won the stones. Why was he here? The Graham Guild had direct ties to the Mage Tower. He could get stones whenever he wanted. A chilling thought crossed my mind. Did he buy them just to keep them away from me? The auctioneer moved to the final item. The 10th item, a top-grade mana stone. Starting bid, 100 gold. Part 4. The Auction Confrontation. The auction for the top-grade mana stone began. The price climbed steadily until the auctioneer called out, "Bidder 137 offers 890 gold. Any further bids?" I prayed desperately, "Please let this be it. 5, 4, 3, 2. Just as the hammer was about to fall, bidder 204 offers 900 gold. Ains had intervened again. My heart sank. I entered 910 gold, but before the words even left the auctioneer's mouth, Ains countered. 1,000 gold. He was doing this on purpose. He had no need for these stones, yet he was outbidding me with what was essentially pocket change to him. I withdrew my hand, trembling with humiliation. Once the auction ended, I stood up. I couldn't let this go. I needed to confront him. I knocked on the door of booth 204. "Come in," his voice rang out. Ains sat there, swirling a glass of wine. "I expected you'd come. Why are you doing this?" I demanded. "I was just curious what you plan to buy with all that alimony," he replied with a faint, irritating smile. The realization choked me. Out of mere spiteful curiosity, he had cornered me. "We're divorced, Ains. If you wanted to take an interest in my life, you should have done it years ago." He shrugged. "I don't actually need them. I'll pay for them, you can just take them. I'll inform the staff." It felt like charity, like a bone thrown to a dog. I wanted to scream, to throw the offer back in his face, but my illness gave me no choice. I needed those stones to live. "Don't go back on your word," I spat, turning to leave. "Cecilia," he called out as I reached the door. He walked toward me, his cold, sharp eyes scanning me. "It just doesn't make sense. Why are you suddenly obsessed with mana stones? Are you trying to learn magic?" "Is it a crime if I am?" I countered. "No, but don't expect me to keep following your whims. I have no meaningful interest in you." "Good," I smiled brightly, though it felt like my heart was breaking. "Keep it that way. I'll take the stones since you're so generous." Part 5. The Imperial Ball. A few weeks later, an invitation arrived. The Emperor's birthday ball. I knew the gossips would be waiting for me. The divorced Baroness. But I couldn't hide forever. My friend Monica, Baroness Xavier, crafted me a breathtaking sky blue off-shoulder dress that made me feel like a different woman. When I entered the ballroom, the music seemed to falter. "Marchioness Cecilia Marves," the steward announced. I ignored the whispers and retreated to a quiet corner with a glass of wine. Soon after, Ains arrived. The room erupted in a different way. Young socialites swarmed him, eager to become the next Duchess. I couldn't watch. I stepped out onto the moonlit terrace to breathe. The night air was chilly, and I shivered in my thin dress. "Oh, someone got here before me," a pleasant voice said. A handsome man approached. Before I could speak, he draped his warm coat over my shoulders. "I thought you might catch a cold. Keep it on," he said with a cheerful smile. "I'm Katia Moldovan." I recognized the name, Viscount Moldovan. He stood beside me, looking at the stars. "People can be quite cruel," Katia remarked, nodding toward the ballroom where the whispers were loudest. "It must be hard, seeing how quickly their loyalties shift." "It's the way of the world," I replied softly. Suddenly, I felt a gaze on me. I looked back through the glass doors and saw Ains. He was standing in the center of a crowd, but his eyes were fixed directly on me and the man standing by my side. I turned away quickly. Katia leaned closer, his expression turning serious. "Do you still have feelings for Duke Graham?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" He hesitated, his confident demeanor softening into something vulnerable. "Because," he whispered, "I've liked you for a very long time, Cecilia, from the moment I first met you." His unexpected confession left me momentarily dumbfounded as I just stared up at him. "You said you liked me." "Yes, from the moment I first met you." I was so stunned by the sudden confession that I barely managed to move my lips. But Marquis Moldovan didn't stop there. He continued to pour out his heart. "When I first saw you, Marquis Marbs, you were already engaged to Duke Graham." If Ains and I were engaged then That meant it had been at least 3 years ago. I couldn't even dare to look at you properly. I did approach to greet you once, but I couldn't reveal my feelings to the woman who would become the woman who would become the Duke's wife, so I kept it hidden all that time. Oh, really? When I asked, clearly skeptical, he gave an awkward laugh. Isn't it ridiculous? A grown man pinning for someone for years. I can't even imagine how surprised you must feel, Marquis Marbs. His laugh was low and awkward, yet somehow pitiful, and I felt a pang of sympathy. Still, I couldn't easily speak to him. He liked me. That must have been very sudden, right? The smile on Marquis Moldovan's face gradually faded, and he asked nervously, I'm sorry, I think I need a moment to sort out my thoughts. Was he telling the truth? I apologize. I didn't want to confess like this. I only made things more confusing when your mind must already be in turmoil. No, I asked first. You're very kind. Marquis Moldovan set down his wine glass, then drained the rest of the wine in it. I should be going. I worry that I may have burdened you too much, but if you ever sort out your thoughts, please let me know. I'll be waiting. The smell of alcohol came from his breath. He was about to leave but paused, then turned back toward me. And please return the coat when it's convenient for you. Yes. After hearing my reply, Marquis Moldovan finally left the terrace with a relieved expression. I remained alone on the terrace, watching him walk away. His coat on my shoulder felt a little heavy, but returning it immediately might hurt him, so I didn't act. Meanwhile, the ballroom grew loud and chaotic. I realized the reason belatedly and quickly re-entered the ballroom. The emperor has arrived. As expected, the commotion was caused by the emperor's entrance. Seeing him enter, Elle, like the other nobles, slightly lifted my skirt and bowed. From across the room, I saw Marquis Moldovan talking with other nobles, his face lighting up in a cheerful expression. So different from when he spoke to me. Then our eyes met. Marquis Moldovan smiled brightly and nodded in greeting. I returned a polite nod. You seem quite close to Marquis Moldovan. The familiar voice that followed made my face harden. Duke Graham. Ines had appeared beside me. He stood there, arms crossed, watching the direction I had been looking, where Marquis Moldovan stood. When did you become so close with Marquis Moldovan? Ines asked as if interrogating me. I frowned at his intrusion. Do I have an obligation to answer that, Duke? It's my personal life. Were you acquainted with him before our divorce? Even though I expressed my displeasure, Ines kept his gaze fixed on Marquis Moldovan and asked again. In reality, today was the first time we had talked, and we weren't exactly friends. But listening to Ines made me stubbornly defensive. Why do you care? Is that coat on your shoulder his? Duke. Ignoring my retort, he only asked the question which he wanted, which made me even more resistant. If I am close with Marquis Moldovan. Even before our divorce, if I had a friendship with him. I returned his question with another question, but he didn't answer. He simply took a passing servant's wine glass and drank a sip. No, you're not close with Marquis Moldovan. Meeting and talking properly probably happened for the first time today. Ines spoke with certainty, as if he already knew everything. Did you investigate me? Of course not. He sipped the wine again. I crossed my arms and stared at him. Don't get any closer to Marquis Moldovan. Consider this advice. Watching him sip his wine again, I let out a quiet sigh. Duke Graham, I don't understand why you keep doing this. Didn't I tell you before? No matter what I do in the future, don't take an interest. I don't understand why, after all the attention you gave me before, you're acting like this after our divorce. His interest was burdensome. After all, when I once sought his attention, he never flinched. So why now, after our divorce, does he act like this? As soon as I said it, he turned his gaze from Marquis Moldovan to me. Ines handed his empty wine glass to a passing servant and looked down at me, arms crossed. There was no trace of affection in his gaze, so his questioning about Marquis Moldovan wasn't jealousy. Then why was he asking me about him? While I wondered, Ines removed the coat I had from Marquis Moldovan on my shoulder. Ines. Startled, I blurted out his name. He paused briefly but didn't stop. Hey. He called a nearby servant. The servant hurried over, bowing. Return this coat to Marquis Moldovan. Tell him not to do anything unnecessary. And yes, Duke. The servant took the coat and headed straight for Marquis Moldovan. I could only watch in daze. I watched the back of Marquis Moldovan as he walked away, then turned to Ains. What exactly is this? My voice naturally grew sharp. Lower your voice. Can't you see people are starring? At Ains's words, I looked around. The surrounding crowd was already watching intently, and as I asked Ains sharply, I could feel the conversations gradually quieting. If we kept talking here, strange rumors were bound to start again. Let's move somewhere else for now. With that, Ains turned and walked ahead. I started following him, catching up with his long strides. When we reached the terrace, Ains took off his coat and handed it to me.